you on two devices?
Yes, I'm on my laptop to enable the live stream so that everyone outside of the district can see it until we remove them if we don't want them in the meeting. So. Hi, Veronica and Gina.
I don't know what's going on with my computer.
Hi, this is Tracy. I need to confirm that the people I cannot see are the people, the names. So, Kim, I know you're there. Joe, would you turn on your screen for a moment or just speak and let us know that's you? Robert O'Neill, do you mind turning on your camera for a second or just letting us know that's you?
This is Robert O'Neill from maintenance.
Thank you. And Jeff, would you mind?
I'm here too.
Thank you. Mark, are you there? Mark Blancas?
Hey Tracy, this is Richard. I believe he had some difficulties logging on. He's going to try once again.
Okay. All right. Let's see if I see anybody else. Glenn, would you mind turning on your camera or just stating that it's you?
We have a few people in the chat saying that they have no audio.
I'm not sure why they would not have audio. They would need to check their computer settings, but past that, I don't know. I don't have any other suggestions.
Okay, thanks, Tracy. All right, I show the time as 9:03. Kim, are you there?
Here. Do we want to go ahead and get started?
I just wanted to make sure you were able to connect and we could hear and see you. Let's give them one more minute until 9:05, and then we can go ahead and get started.
Okay, sounds good.
Thank you, Kim.
I signed out and signed back in.
Great, thank you.
Hey Tracy, Mark is having difficulties logging on. He's going to come in my office and I'm going to shoot this video on a 55-inch screen. So if you see another login from me, that's what I'm doing.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Thank you, everyone, for being here. We have a few people that are still trying to get connected that we are getting messages from. So, Kim, we'll just graciously give them a few more minutes. Okay, Kim, the people that I was in contact with are in now, so if you want to go ahead and get started, you can.
Hi, everyone. I want to welcome you to the Safety and Security Committee meeting. I need to say this spiel really quick before we get started. Alief ISD will be hosting a closed Safety and Security Committee meeting in accord with Texas Law Section 551.076. We request that all members of the public leave the virtual room right now. I don't believe we have any members of the public here, but if so, please leave at the moment.
I don't see anyone, Kim. It looks good.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Okay. Can you all see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, all right, let's get started. As I said, welcome to the Safety and Security Committee meeting for the spring. I know this is very different. Usually we do this in person, and I know it's very different not only with not having Zoom, but also just not having the in-person connection. So I hope that we can hopefully get over that and have a pretty easygoing meeting for the rest of the time. So for our overview, we're just going to quickly talk about a safety moment, our threat assessment update or SSSP update, our hand sanitizer storage update, a chemical safety program that we've been just continuously working on, other items of importance, and workers' compensation updates from Tracy. So I hate to start this meeting off this way, and it's kind of awkward, but I will be leaving the district, you guys. My last day is February 24th. I want to tell you all thank you. This has been such a great opportunity, and I'm very gracious for the opportunity. I was very new to school districts, and being able to introduce occupational safety in a greater setting or in a bigger format than what schools are used to, I'm very grateful for that opportunity. For me, I'm a mom of 3, and so I really needed some more flexibility. And so I ended up getting a position as a safety instructor working completely remote. And I decided to take that, one, because it was just a really prestigious company, and then 2, I just wanted to be home more around my kids during this difficult time with the pandemic and all of those things. But once again, I want to thank you all, and I'm going to try to finish up my projects, or at least have them in a good place before I leave in a couple of weeks. So for the sake of this meeting, most of what I'll be providing are status updates on what we've worked on, what we've achieved, what I plan to finish before I leave, and then the next steps after that. So for the hand sanitizer updates, I want to kind of brief you guys on the background of that a little bit before going into what we've been able to achieve. So if you can recall from the previous meetings that we've had, there was an issue with hand sanitizer storage. So the National Fire Protection Agency says that you can only store around 10 gallons of hand sanitizer in a bulk storage setting before you have to have permits and other equipment modifications put in place. Well, we had much more than that, as you all know, due to the pandemic. Lots of different entities were sending us hand sanitizer, and then we had also ordered some. So we decided to get rid of some of our hand sanitizer. So to give you guys a little bit of background, this has been a common issue amongst schools and just also amongst other entities such as research facilities, clinics, anywhere where people are coming in and out. It's been a very common issue, and people have had to get rid of a lot of hand sanitizer. We did not get rid of all of our hand sanitizer. We got rid of the one that had basically turned bad. I'm sure you all know which one I'm talking about, but if you see it, it looks very orange, dirty. It was an eyesore. No one was using it. And so we thought by getting rid of that, that would help us also achieve better compliance with the NFPA code. So we worked with our chemical waste vendor, and we removed about 2,200 gallons of hand sanitizer, which was about 19,000 pounds. We were able to save quite a bit of money with this project by working with our vendor and using some other methods of getting it picked up. So what I mean is that usually when you have chemicals, the waste vendor comes to each site to pick up the chemicals. Well, our waste vendor told us basically that to save probably tens of thousands of dollars, it would be better to consolidate it at the warehouse. The reason why is because each time a waste vendor comes to a site, they have to put together what's called a waste manifest. Then they also have the travel costs, the packing costs per site as well. And so, as you know, we had hand sanitizer at literally all of our facilities. And so by having the warehouse staff and I believe some of the custodial staff consolidated at the warehouse, that was able to literally save us tens of thousands of dollars. Another way we were also able to save money is that we asked the waste vendor if they could train us on packing it so that the waste vendor did not have to pack the sanitizer. All they had to do basically was have our team use a forklift to pick up the hand sanitizer and put it on their truck. So I think a couple of days, the waste vendor came by and he trained the warehouse workers on the proper packing of the chemical waste. And from there, once he arrived, they packed up the waste and they took it, and that also saved us quite a bit. So this was a project that we estimate probably would have cost us around $40,000 to $60,000, but by consolidating it and having our workers assist with the packing, it was cut down to around $26,000. So quite a bit of savings, still expensive, but quite a bit of savings. But our next steps with this project is really to ensure that we just have continual maintenance with our hand sanitizer. Even though we got rid of the bad hand sanitizer, we still have quite a bit of hand sanitizer left. And so we really just want to work on continual maintenance and making sure that our hand sanitizer is not overly bulk stored. So we only are supposed to have 10 gallons or under. If we have anything above that in a room, then we have to have a permit for it. I have tried for a while to get in touch with the fire marshal to find out if we could get like a permit for the entire district instead of permits per site, but I just have not heard back regarding that. But other next steps, of course, is ideally we want to have some kind of management of change process with incoming chemicals. So some way where risk management or the next safety person, if someone's getting a new chemical or something, that they update them, let them know so that the safety person can look at the SDS sheet and they can assess what storage requirements we need or what just anything that we really need. And that management of change process is really important. I'll give you an example. So one year I worked for a company, I was their safety officer, and there was a lady that was pregnant, right? So we had a management of change process. She worked in a lab and they were working with this new chemical. And so by looking at the SDS ahead of time, we actually realized that that chemical was called a teratogen. And a teratogen is basically a chemical that can affect the developing fetus. So by having that management of change process, we were able to know ahead of time that, oh, okay, she can't work on this specific project, we'll put her somewhere else for the time being. So it is a really good thing to have in place. And I think in the future, maybe it can prevent some of the issues like the hand sanitizer issue happening. But I do want to thank Patrick Cherry for assisting greatly with the hand sanitizer project and ensuring that all of the campuses got their information together regarding the quantities. I want to thank the custodial staff as well for greatly assisting with that, Laura Rakoder and her staff, as well as the warehouse. They were very instrumental as well with doing really the heavy lifting of actually packing the hand sanitizer. And so we're very happy to get rid of that and not have to deal with that for the current time. So the next update, shifting gears a little bit, is our SSSP update, also known as threat assessment. So as I've mentioned in the past, the TEA refers to your threat assessment program now as the Safe and Supportive School Program, or SSSP program. It's a lot of S's to say, but I want to start using that nomenclature so people remember that, especially when they have their upcoming audit soon, that SSSP is threat assessment. So for our SSSP update, we are moving forward with that. Right now, we are currently working with the schools to identify their point of contacts. And from there, we plan on them using the Navigate 360 platform for assessments in March. So that is currently going on at the time. We're just identifying the school point of contacts. I may try, since I'm still here until February 24th, I may try to move that up a week ahead and get out the a threat assessment document that our district team put together, just so it can assist the schools with all things threat assessment. It kind of gives them a little bit more background. Ideally, how we want this platform to work is that the schools are already doing their threat assessment programs. They're already doing threat assessments. We just want them to put the information into a formal platform, which is our Navigate 360 platform. So that's kind of how we're rolling it out, is you're already doing this, you're just having the formal documentation. And the platform is very simple, very user-friendly. So I'm hoping that maybe I can push that start date up a little bit before I leave, but I'm still working with identifying those points of contact. Okay, so the biggest update we have right now is the campus chemical safety project. And so I want to give you a little bit of background, or just kind of refresh your memory on that before we go into what we've been working on. So beforehand, I mentioned that I had went to the 3 big campuses, Elsick, Taylor, and Hastings a while back, and noticed that they had just a ton of old chemicals. And one of the issues with old chemicals is that there's a new labeling requirement that came out in 2012, and a lot of those old chemicals needed new labels. So essentially all their chemicals basically needed new labels. Well, with talking with those campuses, I realized that most of their chemicals they don't use. They were old, they were overcrowding their storerooms, so they couldn't store it properly or be in accordance with OSHA guidelines. And so really, we just want to get rid of some of those old chemicals and then focus on the labeling and all of that stuff. So after presenting that information, it was determined that I really needed to look at not just those 3 campuses, but just all of the middle school and high school campuses. And so this is the information that we came up with. So we're still kind of in phase 1 gathering that information. So what we're trying to do is gather the quantities of chemicals needed to be removed and assess chemical compliance as a whole. So what I did was I attended high school and middle school leadership meetings with the high school and middle school science leads, and identified those science leads per campus. That was important because initially when I tried to institute this project, it was during last summer, and a lot of those science leads weren't available, so it was really difficult to determine who to contact regarding chemicals on campus. But now we have the specific science leads for each campus identified. From there, I did a quick training with them, as I said, at the leadership meeting, and that was just kind of giving them the background on specific things that they need in place. So informing them of the labeling requirements, how to put together the correct label, informing them of proper chemical segregation, how to test their safety showers, eye wash stations, and just general chemical safety maintenance. From there, between October and December, I performed site visits with the science leads at each of those campuses. And it was really interesting because each campus is very, very different. And so there are some things that are really just difficult to assess. You almost have to take it per campus. But there were key areas of improvement that I think overall would work across all of the campuses I visited, which was overall 15 campuses. And that was the chemical removal and labeling, as we mentioned earlier. Personal protective equipment was an interesting one. Safety showers and eye wash stations, waste removal, and fume hoods. And so I'm going to go into a little detail about each of those. So as I said, I noticed that chemicals needing removal was just a big issue across campuses. It was not just the big three. Pretty much all of them had old chemicals. And when I spoke with them, with the science leads, a lot of them didn't even really know what chemicals they had. They're very kind, very knowledgeable about what they currently do, but a lot of things were just inherited. And I think there was also a fear of getting rid of old things. They would always tell me, well, I want to keep this in case the next teacher comes and wants to use it. And so also there was just big inconsistency with what chemicals people use across I'll say across the same kind of setting. So what I mean is one middle school may use very base chemicals and do slime, whereas another one uses real reagent grade lab chemicals and does titration. So it's very difficult sometimes to assess it overall. But as far as the old chemicals needing removal, I would estimate, and this is a big number, probably anywhere from 3,500 to 4,000 overall, and most of that are the big schools and the high schools. But another thing we need to factor in are pre-mixed chemicals. So as I mentioned, there's a lot of, I guess, maybe turnover sometimes with people leaving. And so what I mean by pre-mixed chemicals is, say a teacher mixed some chemicals for a demonstration. Well, what happened was they would just leave it in a flask. They wouldn't label it, and so that chemical has just stayed there in a flask for years and no one knows what it is. And so in order to get those removed, the waste vendor will have to come perform an analytical to determine what the chemicals are in that flask or whatever it is, and then they can determine how to move it. They won't just, pour it in a container and get rid of it. They have to know exactly what it is. And so there was quite a bit of that actually at some of the campuses. And so that is something to keep in mind also. I know analyticals, if I can recall, they're not super expensive, but when you have a lot, it can be expensive. If I can recall, they're anywhere from about $50 to $100 per each analytical. So there, as I mentioned, there were quite a bit of pre-mixed chemicals that need to be disposed of, but I don't have the correct quantities. So the next steps in this process is really to get, and this is very difficult, to get a quote from the waste vendor. So this is difficult for a multitude of reasons. One reason is that a lot of the schools, they don't have accurate chemical inventory lists, or they don't have chemical inventory lists, period. And for the schools that have smaller chemicals, I've been able to get their chemical inventory list pretty easily and determine what chemicals they want to remove. But for the bigger ones, some of them, like I said, they have over 1,000 chemicals, and it's going to take some time to get that information. So one thing they could do, which will cost more money, is have a chemical company come in and perform the inventory. So not only would they do the inventory, they would also do the labeling for those old chemicals too. So I did get a quote in the past for that for the big three campuses, Elsig, Taylor, and Hastings, and it was around like $50,000. That doesn't even include the other amount. So I am thinking that this project would be better in a long-term, as a long-term thing. I think it would be difficult to get it all done at once. And I think for the schools, just if they had some ongoing chemical removal, such as, removing 30 or 40 old chemicals a month, you could do quite a bit with that. I'm still going to try and get a quote from the waste vendor, but it's not only difficult without the inventory list, it's also difficult difficult because when you have different lab chemicals, they do something what's called a lab pack. So they basically just pack a whole bunch of these different chemicals into like one big drum. And everything is really dependent on what type of chemicals you have and the quantities. So as I mentioned, some of the schools that have inventory lists, they're not adequate because they don't have the quantities of the chemicals also. And so I'm trying to work currently with the schools on getting the correct quantities as well as getting inventory lists. And as I said, some of the smaller campuses or some of the middle schools, that's been pretty easy to deal with, but the ones that have the most, that's definitely been difficult, and they may need some assistance with doing that. Another issue that was really interesting was the lack of personal protective equipment, meaning PPE. So generally anyone that works in a lab, whether they're staff or even students, should wear PPE. And that's really just gloves, lab coat or apron. Most in the school setting would just wear an apron because the lab coat's kind of overkill. And then just protective eyewear or, goggles. But what I noticed when I asked about PPE across campuses is that it was really just up to the teacher. And they were very honest. They would tell me we don't really wear it. And that's definitely, of course, not okay. They should be wearing PPE when they're working with chemicals. And so another thing I also noticed when talking with the staff was that a lot of them, they wanted PPE, but one of the problems was that they didn't have the budget for it. So a lot of the staff would purchase gloves out of their personal funds, meaning their check, instead of it being built into their budget. And so that, of course, PPE should always be provided at no cost. And so I think just getting an assessment of the PPE that's needed is important. Some of, as I said, it's inconsistent. So some of the schools, they have aprons, they have all those things, they just don't use it. And then other schools they just don't have it, and they would like it, but they don't. The only way I was able to get it was through a safety grant, which is still awesome. She was able to get it, but it should be something that's provided by the district at no cost. So the next steps with that is I just talked to the staff, I trained them and just informed them that they need to wear PPE, but it should be part of policy. So we do have a district HASCOM plan that I did develop, and it does have a PPE policy in place. Now, I do know that some of the schools, like I said, some do just work with like slime and things like that. But, we are building little scientists, so they do need to get into the act of wearing PPE when they're working with any chemicals across the board. And they seemed really, when I talked to the staff, they seemed to understand that they should be wearing it. It was just not a policy, so they just didn't wear it. But I believe going forward that they will. I think the biggest issue is just trying to assess what's needed as far as the aprons and things of that nature. So another interesting finding was safety showers and eye wash stations. So generally safety showers, eye wash stations, those should be in any area usually where chemicals are stored or where people are doing experiments, so chemical labs. And one thing I noticed, some rooms where kids do actual experiments, they didn't have safety showers. Actually, there were quite a few, I think there were maybe like 3 middle schools where they do experiments. They have literal lab grade chemicals, but they have no safety showers in the building. And so those are supposed to be in each room where those experiments are done. And the actual standard is supposed to be within 10 seconds. So that's something that those rooms literally have to have in place. And I think some of the issues maybe came from the fact that maybe those rooms may have been retrofitted. I know one of the schools that I went to, they were in a room with carpet, but it was their science room. So the teacher, he does experiments in there, but it's in a room with carpet, which isn't great for, experiments. So I think definitely looking into that is really important, and trying to ensure that we at least have these safety showers in place. Also, another thing I found is that the rooms that did have safety showers, a lot of them weren't functional. So I don't know if maybe, I'm assuming probably from the pandemic, maybe they weren't checked or something like that. And so really those just have to be certified annually. And also they have to be internally checked weekly. So what that means is that someone has to discharge the water, discharge the eye wash station, and they have to do that weekly. So I know what you're asking. That's going to make a big mess, and I understand. So usually someone will have a bucket, and they can catch the water. So that's something that they'll need is either some kind of bucket, or some companies sell safety shower testing equipment where they have like a curtain that they put around the safety shower and they have a bucket attached to it. Those are, I think, anywhere from, I checked, I think $40 to $50. So maybe just having a bucket would be easier, but that is something that they're supposed to do weekly. And the reason why that's important is because if you don't check those safety showers for a while, sometimes the water can be really bad. And that was something that I saw at a few of the schools where they did have water come out, but it was brown. And so that's why it's important to get it annually certified and just internally check it every week. So the next steps that I'm working on that I want to achieve before I leave is just getting specific quantities of the missing safety showers. When I visited the campuses, I wasn't able to visit every single lab, and so I don't have the exact amounts of the quantities. So before I leave, I want to get the exact amounts. And as I said, most of the schools had safety showers. Some were missing them completely, but all of them needed to have them certified annually, and then they needed to internally check them. So I did train the schools on internally checking the safety showers and eye wash stations. And I think right now they are weekly checking the eye wash stations. It's just the safety showers, they don't have anything to catch that water. And so they haven't started doing that because it would cause more of a hazard. And so that is something that I'll get the specific quantity for as well, so that we can determine how many buckets or apparatuses they need for testing those. So another issue that I think we can address district-wide was waste. From the schools, what I noticed is really it was just a lack of knowledge on the waste. That's all it was. A lot of the people I talked to, they said, hey, I haven't, outside of, being a teacher, I haven't really worked in a chemical lab since college. And so they didn't really know what waste was incompatible. Also, sometimes they would have the wrong size containers, and that would also affect their price with getting it picked up. So, for example, you would have, they do their waste pickup once a year, right, by the waste vendor. And that's okay, that's fine. But the problem is they only really generate maybe like a third of a 55-gallon drum. But the problem with waste is if you're using a 55-gallon drum, they're going to charge you as a 55-gallon drum, even if you're only at a third of that. So they really needed a better, like a 33-gallon drum or a smaller container. That way they're not priced so exorbitantly. And so that's one thing I've been working on with those specific campuses, is just ensuring that, we have the right containers so that they don't have unnecessary costs. I'm also working with our chemical waste vendor to train the staff. So as I said, a lot of them just did not know what chemicals are compatible. And I know that they were just sometimes pouring chemicals all into the same container. And you could tell from the smell and just other things that it was incorrect. And so the chemical waste vendor is going to attend a Zoom meeting with them in March, and he's going to train them on the proper disposal of specific chemicals. So the difficult part with this is every campus is different, and so it's a little difficult to talk about specific waste streams overall, but there are some specific lab grade chemicals that like every campus uses. And so he can at least train them on those and ensure that they're getting rid of their waste properly. I think also the chemical waste removal project will help with this also, because they'll be getting rid of chemicals that they don't use, a lot of them. And so we'll be able to better determine what chemicals they have, and then from there we can determine specific waste streams and where they go. And so that's the next steps, is really the training with the chemical waste vendor. And also a big part of it, as I said, is the removal of the old chemicals to determine what we need. So another thing that I think can be addressed across the district is chemical fume hoods. So basically what a chemical fume hood is when you're working with chemicals, especially ones that can cause kind of noxious fumes or vapors, ideally you want to work with it under a chemical fume hood to exhaust those vapors and to prevent any respiratory illnesses. So one thing I noticed is that not many schools use them, which is okay if they're not needed. The thing is, I don't know if they're not needed because I still don't know really what all processes they do. But I do know the ones that do use them, the ones they use are not functional. So with chemical fume hoods, those have to be certified annually. And I know from talking to them that the ones they use have not been certified. And then also by just testing the fume hood, there was no airflow coming out of it. So one thing I worked on with the schools is first doing what I can, which is just training them on how to use a chemical fume hood. One of the issues we had was sometimes, I think part of the reason why they wouldn't work was the staff was raising them too high, and sometimes that affects the flow. And so I just worked with them on ensuring they have them at the proper height when using them, that they're closed when they're not in use. And then also we're going to have our chemical waste vendor also train them on the use of chemical fume hoods as well, what chemicals to work with under the fume hood as well. But the main thing with the chemical fume hoods is the schools that do use them, which I think was only some of the high schools, so maybe like 4, they have to make sure that they're certified annually. And usually they are certified by an outside company, and sometimes it's the company, the name of the company that the fume hood is. So I can look into all of that information to get the certifying company set up and under the way. So overall, the things that we do have in progress, we did put together a HAZCOM plan, and so it includes all of this information: the PPE policy, how to use a fume hood, how to determine appropriate waste streams, segregation of chemicals, all that kind of stuff. So it includes all of that. So that has been put together. I sent it to the schools. I didn't hear anything back, so I guess it's good. So I guess I will go ahead and issue that to them. And the good thing about that is it's a place that they can seek if they're confused about anything, but also it gives accountability with these programs. And also the next part that like I said, I'm trying to put together is I've already given in-person training to those staff, but they need an annual training. So one thing I'm trying to do before I leave is put together some kind of annual training and what am I trying to say? Some kind of annual training and kind of tape it or whatever, so that they can listen to it and have it just kind of as an annual thing. The next steps after that is really determining the best method for inventorying those chemicals, especially at the campuses, as I said, that have a lot. There are 3 that have about 1,000, the big schools. And then some of the smaller high schools still have a lot, like 400 or 500. So they still have quite a bit. And just ensuring that they have the proper inventory and that they have the quantities too, because that's going to help us determine the quotes. And so that's kind of what kind of takes a longer time. As I said, there's 2 methods we could do. The quick, more money method, which is to outsource that, or the slow, less money method is to do it internally. So it just depends on what method we want to do. But I think the chemical removal, that's a long-term issue. I think some of the bigger things that we want to put into place now is ensuring they're using PPE and that they have PPE. That's a big one. And then also the safety showers. Not having those while doing chemicals or doing experiments is not good. And so that's something, those are things that I would say are almost top priority before getting even rid of the old chemicals. Before I go into the next update, does anyone have any questions? Okay, so we will go to the next one. Sorry. Let me go to the next slide. Okay, so campus emergency response. So generally maintenance works with the Harris County Fire Marshal's Department, but I worked with one of the maintenance staff. He needed a little help with this project. So basically, Harris County Fire Marshal, I believe they oversee like 10 of our schools, right? But what they asked for were campus-specific emergency response documents, and those are just good things to have district-wide. And so we decided, instead of just focusing on those 10 schools, we will go ahead and just make sure that all of our campus have campus emergency response specific plans. So with Harris County Fire Marshal's office, they're moving more into not just fire safety, but just general life safety overall. And so they want us to have actual written drills of a written lockdown, written severe weather, written medical, written hazmat plans. They want to ensure that our site maps have specific points of contact for specific items. They want us to also have site maps, evacuation maps, and also the types and models of our fire suppression equipment. That sounds like a bit overkill, I know, but that is actually really important for them when they're responding to an emergency. And so they really want us to have all of that information into one specific campus-based emergency response plan, which I think is actually a good thing. I know from my experience with visiting with the campuses and sometimes asking them, hey, what's your specific plan for this site? A lot of times they would think that was like the district MEOP, or they would assume maybe that was, they would show like the red flip binder, but really they need actual specific plans like what the Harris County Fire Marshal's office is offering or is asking for. So the good thing is the Harris County Fire Marshal's office, they did give us a really good template. And the good thing with the template, it's a school-based template. So it has actual written lockdown, severe weather, medical, hazmat. It has all of that already built in. So that part we don't even have to worry about because they're the typical lockdown procedures that you would have across campuses. So while the campuses, they can use that template, they can still kind of like add in their specific information in that part as well. But a lot of that is already done for them. So what they specifically wanted were site maps. And so a site map is the outside of the building where it shows your mustering point or your like rallying point. And then they wanted just a few evacuation maps, not all of them, because as you know, in a building like this, you could have like 12 different evacuation maps. So they just wanted like maybe 2 or 3 different ones just to show specific evacuations of main high traffic areas. But really, those are the things they were really looking for, was points of contact and the site maps. So I sent that information to the schools, and I have been getting a lot of feedback on it. I think one of the difficulties that the campuses are having is not really the points of contact or the maps or anything. It's the types and models of the equipment that they have, the fire equipment, and that's information that they would have to get probably from maintenance. But the good thing is I told them, right now, focus on the site maps and the points of contact, because that's really what the fire marshal wants. And you can take your time with finding that fire suppression equipment or finding the types and models. It's good to have, and the fire marshal does want that. But for right now, the main thing that they want are just points of contact, who to contact in the event of an emergency, and our site maps and evacuation maps. And so they have a due date of 2/26, but I'm going to try and I'll be unfortunately gone during that time, but I'm going to try and get as many of those as I can. And then I'll make sure that the staff will send them to my friend in maintenance in my absence. Does anyone have any questions before I transition this slideshow to Tracy? All right, so sorry, Tracy, for some reason it keeps going to the very beginning. But you can go ahead, Tracy.
Okay, so I'm just going to give you a brief snapshot of where our workers' compensation program is. I'm not giving a lot of detail, but feel free to ask any questions. Kim, can you go to the claim count?
Yes.
So this was a really nice piece of information because it gave us like the past 31 years that we had. And this is valued as of our fiscal year. And so you'll see we have about 320 reportable injuries per year. 2020 and 2021, of course, because of the pandemic, we had employees working at home. We had, when we came back to the campuses, a lot of the teachers and classes were confined to the classroom. So we had a lot fewer injuries those years. 2022, we're just starting, but we have about 320 reportable injuries per year. So we have high incidence and low severity. And that is because we want our people to report injuries. And that's very typical of public entities and school districts, so we're about what you would expect. Okay, Kim, would you go to the next slide? So this is our net incurred, and that means what we have actually paid out on these claims, plus what we estimate that we owe. And so we average about $970,000 per year that we pay out on our claims. You'll see some years are higher, like 2006, 2016, and unfortunately, this is generally due to a death claim, which doesn't happen very often, but it does happen. So our average cost per claim is about $3,100, and that is lower than our benchmark. So we're doing very, very well in the average cost per claim. Where our school district really excels is that we have 95% of our doctors are 5-star doctors in our network that our employees can go see. Even the Texas Department of Insurance Division of Workers' Compensation has commented that we have very good doctors, we have very good surgeons. So we are providing our employees the ability to go see the doctor on the first day. We do have telemedicine. We do have free transportation to one of our urgent care clinics. So we're doing well in that. Where we want to work on, of course, is we want to work on our safety programs. We want to partner with our safety manager to lower our incidences in especially our manual trades like custodial transportation. We want to work on different ways where we can help our employees there to be safer. And some of our HR directors are looking at various ways we can work and help our special ed teachers or special ed aides get different training that would enable them to have a safer job. I also want to mention that you'll notice the average cost per claim is $3,100. So the benchmark is $6,900 per claim, and the best practice is $5,579. So we're doing very well. Some school districts around our area have slightly lower cost per claim, but again, we have a great network of doctors that our employees are seeing, so this is pretty good. Okay, Kim, would you move to the next slide? I just wanted to give a brief overview of our COVID-19. Of course, most COVID-19 infections would not be covered by workers' compensation unless the employee is in a higher risk position. So for the entire pandemic, as of November 7th, 2021, insurance carriers reported to the Texas Department of Insurance 61,000 COVID-19 claims and 371 fatalities. 45% of those claims and 50% of the fatalities involved first responders and correctional officers. Sorry, I left that out. So most of the claims reported to the Department of Insurance were for higher risk positions like hospital related or first responder related. Alief ISD has only reported 20 COVID-19 claims. All but 3 were from the police department because those employees requested to submit a workers' compensation claim. 10 were denied and 10 were accepted. And the most of the time, the reason they were denied, it was before June of 2021, their time off work. And fortunately, again, our school district is paying FFCRA pay to our employees who are off work within the guidelines. So they've been, very fortunate to have that. We would pay, out-of-pocket costs for these individuals if they went to the doctor or had medication, but they really didn't. So it's been a very minimal impact to our school district. Whereas some other school districts ran all of their COVID-19 claims through their workers' compensation program that produced a lot of paperwork, a lot of cost, and many of them were denied because they don't follow the guidelines. So we're in a good position at this point. Are there any questions? Okay, if there are no questions, I'm going to turn it back over to Kim. Thank you.
Okay, does anyone have any questions also on the kind of occupational safety or threat assessment or anything else? Okay, well, other than that, I want to end on a high note. I just want to tell you all thank you. I've really enjoyed, truly have enjoyed working with you all. This has been probably one of the more pleasant safety experiences that I've been in. And I've had some pleasant ones, but one of the difficulties with building up occupational safety sometimes is just the training, just having to train people and develop and all of that. And one thing I really liked about Alief is how receptive the staff has been to safety concerns and issues. It's been a wonderful experience, and I'll take this positive experience with me into my next endeavor. I will try my hardest to work on resolving as many of these, or at least getting them to a good point before I leave. So I will probably be reaching out to a lot of you guys. And also after the meeting, I will send you guys the chemical safety plan that I put together just so I can get some feedback on it, because I didn't really get much from some of the schools I sent. So if you could give me some feedback on that before I kind of issue it out as an official document, that would be nice. But other than that, thank you all.
Kim,
Yes.
Thank you again. Just before we end, I want to turn it over to the committee and see if there are any items that they want to discuss with the group, or any questions or concerns over safety and security in general. All right.
Katina, hearing none. Before we go, I just want to thank Kim for setting the district in a position to where we can start addressing some of these issues that is she would, as she kind of alluded to, have either gone overlooked or this is one of the situations where it's not an issue till it's an issue. And I appreciate your leadership and your guidance in getting us to a position to where whoever comes into this role has a good starting place to continue moving forward and making sure that we're all safe. So good luck to you as you move on in your professional life and taking care of those 3 kids. But I do appreciate what you've done for Alief as well.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you,
you,
Mr.
Katina.
Chambers. All right. Anyone else? Any other updates, questions, or concerns? No? All right. Never known this group to be a quiet group, but I guess today we are. Kim, final closing?
No, just like I said, it's been a pleasure working with everyone. Everyone is so nice. I'm used to working with sometimes physicians and scientists, and they can be really difficult. So this has been a very, very pleasant experience. And like I said, if you have any questions, seriously, feel free to ask me. I'm on all social media, so feel free to ask me, and hopefully I'll see you guys again soon.
Thank you, Kim. Good luck.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Enjoy your day.